All the way back in 2019, Zion Williamson, when he was in top tier shape, had bounced out of the gym. He was being called the best prospect since LeBron James. And on draft night, actually copied LeBron's draft fit by wearing all white. Zion in 2019 could do no wrong, and for 99.9% of NBA fans, him being the first pick was a slam dunk, no pun intended. But now, 5 years later, looking back on the hype, the high praise Zion was getting, now in 2024, it's downright depressing. As Zion today, his overall game is stagnated, he's in worse shape than ever, and there's major question marks about his motivation to be an all-time great player. And look, being only 24 years old, you don't want to call it quits and throw in the towel. But looking around the NBA at other guys who are 24, 25, a little bit older, a little bit younger, there are so many guys at this point who've surpassed Zion and even lapped him in terms of potential. And looking at Zion's last 3 years, the most damning stat of all is that only one time in 3 years has he played 10 games consecutively. And those 3 years total hasn't cracked 50 games to this point. Again, I'm not throwing the towel on Zion Williamson, I'm not calling it quits, saying he's done, but that overall potential of being a Hall of Fame player, one of the all-time greats that we hoped he could be, the potential for that is fading faster every single week. As Zion's career at this point is almost the exact reverse of Shawn Kemp, as Kemp coming into the NBA was ripped in great shape, but by age 30 was Shawn Clump in a shell of himself. And for Zion, the NBA player, unlike Shawn Kemp, this dude never was in top tier shape on an NBA court. I mean, don't forget, his rookie year, his first year in the NBA, he missed months before his debut versus the San Antonio Spurs. And speaking for Pelicans fans, if Zion at this point is Shawn Kemp 2.0, I think all of them would take that in a heartbeat. And look, when it comes to being in NBA shape, for the average human being, it's virtually impossible. But for an NBA player, being in phenomenal shape is like the bare minimum for a guy who actually cares about basketball and cares about being great. And the era we're in right now, it's not the 1950s, 60s, or even 80s. At this point in this era, you have to actively try to not be in shape. And this may sound harsh to some, but Zion being so out of shape for really 5 straight years is 100% selfish on his part. As looking at his Pelicans team, for really the last 3.5, 4 years, they've been waiting on Zion to get healthy, be ready, and in NBA shape. And at every single turn, this guy is out of shape and lagging behind. And if you're in the Pelicans front office, I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for the one guy who's the key to your team to always be out. It not only screws them, but also Brandon Ingram, Willie Green, the role players. I mean, the entire organization has been screwed by Zion Williamson. And look, he shows flashes of greatness, moments here and there. But like I said earlier, Zion in the last 3 years has played 10 straight games only once. And why Pelicans fans, NBA fans, even analysts are fed up with Zion Williamson is because when he's healthy, he is indeed phenomenal. And last time he really was healthy was late in 2021. As before his foot injury, in the prior 15 games, he was playing an all-star level and even an all-NBA level. As in those games, he averaged 29.1 points, 8.1 boards, 4.2 assists on nearly 60% shooting. And for 15 straight games, scored 20 plus points every time and shot under 50% only once. That 15-game sample size was the last glimpse of a prime Zion Williamson who had Hall of Fame potential. And since then, it's been a gradual snowball downhill, bumps, bruises, injuries, off-the-court scandals, and everything in between. And if you look at his numbers now for the Pelicans, look, they're still respectable, really good numbers, but for a guy in year 5 who had LeBron James level hype, plateauing at age 24 wasn't really expected. And if you look at the overall film, Zion today, compared to Duke Zion Williamson, this version of Zion looks like he went to Golden Corral for a 12-hour binge. Compared to Duke Zion, he looked like a 12-year-old playing on a Nerf hoop. And if you want to compare overall skill set, Zion in 2019 compared to Zion now, It can honestly be debated Zion at this point hasn't improved in nearly anything, as this year, compared to his rookie season, he's averaging less points, rebounds, more turnovers, on lower shooting from the field, 3, and the free throw line. And most disappointing, Zion in this era still is taking 0.3 per game, which is virtually unheard of for a 20-point per game score. The only real evolution of Zion's game has been his passing and playmaking, which is decent for a guy his size, playing power forward. But besides that, he's plateaued, even gotten worse in most aspects of the game. And on defense, still to this point, leaves a lot to be desired. And one more crazy fact I do want to throw out there, Zion in 5 years, not once, has played a playoff game. And the 2 closest games he's had to a playoff atmosphere was this year in the in-season tournament. In his last 2 games of this tournament, for Sacramento and LA, the 2 biggest games of his life to this point on national television, they were complete duds back-to-back. As in both games, he only averaged 11.5 points, 0% shooting from 3, 17% from the line, 3.5 turnovers, with a plus-minus of minus 14.5. And even worse than the overall stats, versus the Lakers, he looked uninspired, aloof, and mentally checked out. And if you contrast that to LeBron James, who Zion was compared to, LeBron in 22 minutes scored 30 points on nearly 100% shooting. That is pretty wild to think about. LeBron at age 38, about to be 39, is still miles better than Zion Williamson at age 24. And going full circle with this video, looking back at 2019, entering that year's draft, many forget, the New York Knicks, not the Pelicans, had the highest odds to get Zion. And when they didn't, fell all the way to third. Knicks fans, Stephen A. Smith, and actually most NBA fans were downright disappointed. As by not getting Zion Williamson, settling for RJ Barrett, that's like getting Chris Bosh in a draft for LeBron James. Yes, still a really good player, but Zion was the prize of the draft, or what many thought was a once-in-a-lifetime player. And you can't help but wonder, if those ping pong balls bounced the Knicks' way, what would Zion be like now with the Knicks in 2024? Would he have come in super motivated, in shape, and ready to prove himself to a big market team with tons of history? Would he have dialed it up even more given the pressure to win in a big market like New York? I mean, it's definitely possible. As in New Orleans, there's not really any pressure, good or bad, and Zion's just kind of down there, having some highlight dunks and big plays, but on the national stage, really isn't talked about or even mentioned. Look, when it comes to Zion, there's a ton of what-ifs, but I feel very confident saying, if he ran his first 5 years in a simulation 100 times over, this version of Zion's career is one of the worst possible outcomes, not only for him, but for Pels fans, Pels management, and NBA fans in general. And look, before I close this video, I want to be very clear in saying, I am still pro Zion Williamson and in this dude's corner, as at this point, he isn't at the Ben Simmons levels of ineptitude, or at least, not yet. But in terms of the hot seat, Zion now finally has a little bit of pressure on him to perform and actually be in shape. And by getting blasted by 44 points on national TV, maybe, just maybe, is a turning point for Zion in his career. So, as always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.